Hey guys, we've got a big one for you today. This is episode number 414 of the Golf Podcast, and we've got Rick Shiels coming on the show, who we've had Rick on the show before. We had him briefly when we went out to golf, YouTube Golf Day in 2019.
Right.
And Rick was a man who was pulled in many directions then running. That was quite a big undertaking, that event. And I still think it's incredible what he did. And I want to ask him if YouTube Golf Day is coming back, because I know that's on the tip of a lot of people's tongues, that question. But we got a brief chance to sit down with him. We talked about YouTube Golf Day and how that came together. But today we're gonna do something different. We're gonna dive deep.
Yeah,
we want to find out. You know, Rick has reached an incredible accomplishment recently. 2 million YouTube subscribers. It makes his channel the biggest golf YouTube channel in the world.
He's the godfather of golf YouTube.
He really
That's
is.
what I'm deeming him today.
And I think it's amazing what he's done for YouTube, golf YouTube, how he's helped out many others, ourselves included.
Yep.
And I think it's great for the game. And there's so many things, but I really want to dig in on that backstory and find out how this came about. Because one thing that you can say is, for as successful as Rick is, he's not an overnight success.
Right.
He's gained a lot of subscribers. I think when we were last with him, he had 500,000. Now he's at two and a half years later, he's at 2 million. But he's been on the platform for 7 or 8 years at least.
Yeah.
I mean, we scrolled back through his channel to see. And
he's got a fire. He's got a passion to grow.
He certainly does. So
great to see.
We're super excited. We're going to bring Rick Shiels on the show right now because we've got a lot to talk about. So stay tuned. Here is the Rick Shiels interview. All right, guys. So we want to welcome Rick Shiels back to the show. And first, Rick, we've got to kick it off by congratulating you. 2 million YouTube subscribers. That's an amazing accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. It's feels like it's been a while since I saw you over in Formby back in May 2019, and I don't think I hadn't even reached maybe 400,000 by that point.
Right.
Subscribers. So in that last kind of 18 months or so, 2 years. Oh no, sorry, nearly come up to 3 years. It's changed quite a bit. But thanks for having me on, and love what you're doing. And the set looks amazing, by the way, guys.
Oh, thank you. We're just trying to keep up with your set there. I think it's brilliant. I mean,
I just sent my set designers a picture of your set and said, do that, but just a little bit different, so they don't realize I've copied.
Oh, there you go. Well, listen, I want to dig in on that a little bit and talk about even these last 3 years or so, because we'll get into it. Obviously, you're no overnight success. You've been on YouTube for a long time, but it's been absolutely incredible rocket ship growth recently. And I think a lot of that growth, obviously, it's a testament to your hard work, your team's hard work. And I think also it might be, and I want to get your take on this in a minute, we're a little bit of a gauge on the overall health of the sport in general. But we'll get all into that. But first we want to rewind a little bit. We've got to give a little bit of a starting point, right, Mike?
Oh, yeah. We got to go back. I mean, for especially a lot of the audience who may have heard of Rick Shiels, maybe they don't know your content yet, and they haven't really, dove into what you're putting out there. Let's go back. Let's go back to before it all started. Were you just straight up coaching golf when you started? Was that all it was about for you?
That's it. Yeah. You know what's crazy? Growing up, I always had a fascination with technology. So whether it was the new iPhone that came out, I remember getting the very, very first new iPhone. I remember getting bits of technology, whether it be in a Mac or whatever it may be. So always fascinated with technology. And then, oddly enough, when social media first ever came out, really Twitter was the first kind of, oh no, I'll tell you, that's a lie. MySpace was the first real platform I got onto. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Obviously, at the time, all your friends are on it. I loved the interaction. I loved that you could personalize your page, etc. And then kind of Twitter, as I started to work and become kind of a professional golfer at the age of 19, with the aspirations of being a teaching professional, a very busy teaching professional, that was the goal. It was when Twitter started kicking off, and I just gravitated towards it really easily. And started tweeting, started building a audience on there. So to answer your question, yeah, I still classify myself as a golf pro, even though I think now more people would see me as a YouTuber. If that's my roots, I am a golf pro. I turned pro, like I said, at the age of 19. I wanted to be the best of the best. Realized pretty soon that I wasn't good enough, nowhere near good enough. But that was okay, because I felt like I always had the backup plan of falling into coaching, which is something I really enjoyed doing from a very kind of early age in my professional life. So very easily transitioned into coaching and absolutely loved it. And kind of social media and YouTube plugged into that as a way of promoting myself as a golf coach.
So how much of that was a balance between just enjoying the platform versus more of a means to reach more people? Like, did you say, listen, I've got something to say with my coaching and I want to get it to as many, I don't want, the one-on-one is great, but I want to get it to as many people as possible? Or was it just an enjoyment of the nature of social media?
Do you want the long story or the short story?
Whichever one is more interesting. We're here. I'm all ears. Let's go.
Yep.
Well, this is a podcast, I suppose, so we can stretch it out a little bit.
Sure.
So, again, when I was coaching, I was at my first golf club, which is a lovely golf club in Cheshire in the UK, really affluent area. And I was working with a number of different golf pros, as you do at a facility like this. And I remember, with my passion of Twitter and really getting into that, I remember doing something that at the time, all my fellow professional golfers were asking me, why are you doing this? And what I used to do, I used to give people basically free swing advice on Twitter. It helped me pass the time as I was, blending between spending time in the pro shop and out coaching. When I was in the pro shop, I was jumping online, and there used to be a thing on Twitter where you could read other people's mentions. So I remember going onto like David Ledbetter's Twitter, for example, and every day he's getting sent tens and probably even hundreds of videos of golfers around the world sending him swing videos. And every now and again, he would pick one or two of them up and give them tips and give them advice about their swing. But obviously, that's only 1 or 2% of the people who sent the swings to him. So what I would do, I would go onto his mentions and I would actually kind of jump in there, and anyone that he didn't reply to, I'd spend my time replying back to him. And I had a hashtag going, which was if you don't get answered. So, and I used to start it going, if you don't get answered by David Ledbetter, I'm a PGA golf professional here in the UK. This is my input. And I would give them advice about their swing. The grip looks a bit strong. The stance is a bit open. You like your swing a little bit over the top. X, Y, and Z. Here's things that you could fix it. And I, you know what? I don't know why I did it, but I enjoyed it. There was no reason to it. I was giving swing advice to people in New York, or I was giving swing advice to people in Australia, knowing full well I was never going to see these people. Right. But I just enjoyed it. It helped me work on my communication skills. It helped me work on my coaching when I was sat in a pro shop selling Mars bars. Then, so that kind of sparked my interest, because what I then found is a lot of those people who I gave swing advice to became a follower. And are probably still to this day followers now. But I was building this online platform and building this Twitter following, which at the time was probably only in the hundreds, maybe the early thousands. But it was all people that I'd connected with, all people I'd added value to them. And therefore, in return, they wanted to follow me back and interacted with my tweets and everything that I did. The next stage, then, I actually moved to a much busier golf facility, a driving range here in Manchester, UK. And I was one of 4 teaching professionals there. And at the time, I was a young lad. I was probably 22 at this time, maybe 23. Compared to the other pros, I was kind of the new kid on the block. And when I first started, I wasn't particularly very busy. It was hard. It was difficult to get new clients in. It was a busy driving range, but you also already have 3 very established professionals there. So I brought a little bit of a client base with me from my previous golf club, but then would pick people up off the range and give them advice, and then they would book in for lessons. And I was growing nicely. Nicely doesn't quite cut it for me, unfortunately. When I try and do something, I don't know if you can tell from YouTube and podcast and everything else, I do quite like becoming number one. So every couple of weeks we used to have a sales meeting, all the pros, and I was the bottom of the pile. I was the pro selling the least amount of lessons at the time because I was new, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. So I thought to myself, well, how do I get busier when pretty much I feel like everybody that lives within the 10 miles of the driving range are already coming for lessons with one of the other pros. They already are. And I got thinking, well, what's beyond that? Like, what is past just Manchester? Like, why can't I attract audiences from different parts of the country? So again, with my technology brain on, I thought, well, there might be an option there. But the first route I actually went down, because this was how professionals became famous as such, was golf magazines.
Yep.
Golf magazines were the only way to become recognizable, front cover or doing articles in there. So I remember the first thing I did, this was back in about 2010, I emailed every golf magazine I could possibly think of, or the ones in the UK, even the ones in America, Golf Digest, etc., because I thought, well, there's got to be an opening somewhere. And very nicely and politely, most people got back to me and said no. like basically, what why are you different? What do you offer? What tour pro do you teach? Because that was, to become a famous pro in a golf magazine, you have to teach tour pros, really. Or your face has to fit, or something has to be the right time, the right place. So once I got all these knockbacks, I started to think, well, I'd love social media. Like, I love it. I'm all over Twitter. I'm all over YouTube. I'm all over Facebook still. Surely there's got to be a route there. And I'd be lying if I didn't say there was already golf creators making content, but very, very little amounts, like less than a handful of golf creators making content. Probably even when I started, maybe the biggest channel was only on 10,000 subscribers, let's say. So it was still very much in its infancy. So naturally, I gravitated towards the technology. As I mentioned before, I was always into my phones and technology that regards, but I didn't know how to work a camera. I didn't know how to do editing. So I just set up a camera in my teaching bay and started to make some videos. They were terrible.
You were doing this all yourself at that point, correct?
At this point, they were terrible. Yeah, the very, 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 very first videos I ever did, they were terrible.
Were these them, Rick?
So,
can you see this camera? Is this?
No. I'm gonna come on to that in a minute.
Oh, okay.
Believe it or not, they're the better ones.
Oh, okay.
Because I was going to say that
these are pretty good.
We were going to mention, like, these are not that bad for 7-8 years ago. No. But go ahead.
No. So we're now looking at, and this was probably about 2012 now. So I did these videos. I shot them myself. I had no clue where to start. My laptop wasn't good enough for editing. I didn't know how to edit. I knew nothing, like literally nothing. So I thought to myself, well, I can't do this on my own. I need some help. So I decided to look online for a videographer and an editor to do some freelance work for me. So anyway, I got a response from a freelancer who said, yeah, I can come and shoot it all, not a problem. And it's going to cost you X amount. Now, I can't remember the figure off the top of my head, but I remember at the time thinking, oh my God, that's expensive. Oh my God, like how the hell am I going to ever recoup this amount of money? Ever.
Right.
So in my head, I thought I justified it by saying to myself, okay, well, if I can make 20 videos with him in that single day that I had him for, then it might just about pay dividends, right? And the whole idea of, again, me making videos was to promote myself as a golf coach to get more people in through the door in Manchester. Right. So I didn't want to be bottom of the sales list anymore. I wanted to be number one. And not just number one, I wanted to double everyone else. So, But I also felt like, still to this day, I felt like I'm good at coaching. Like I actually, I know I am. I'm a very, very good golf coach. I'm very good at communicating. I can get my message across. I can make people feel comfortable. So I felt like I also had a lot to offer with a slightly younger kind of narrative on it. Because again, at the time, a lot of the famous golf pros are 50, 60, 70 year old. Right. And no disrespect to those people, but that's just how it was, you know? So I felt like I could add a lot of value back to the customer when they did come through the door, and I could help them. And it wasn't about just sales, but that was kind of barometer of how we were measured on performance, really. So this guy came to me. He was actually from the area that I had the YouTube Golf Day. So it's kind of Formby area, kind of the Wirral. So he came over and filmed with me for a full day. And I had this itinerary. I had all these 20 videos that I wanted to film, right? So we started at 7 o'clock in the morning, right? And that was that very first video you've just shown me there now. And we started at 7 o'clock in the morning. And the very first video I did was this very simple bump and run shot. Dead simple tip, right? And wasn't massively overproduced. It was one cameraman, one camera, maybe a secondary camera, but maybe one or two. And the very first take, I absolutely nailed it. Like it was the best video I've ever done at that time. I nailed it. So I turned to him. I'm like a Cheshire cat. I don't know if that's the saying in the US, but I'm very, very happy with myself. Mm-hmm. I'm very, very happy with myself. And I turned to him and I'm like, brilliant. Next one, he goes. So he's got his headphones and he goes, I'm really sorry. Oh, wow. There was a bit of interference. There was a bit of interference in the audio. So I'm like grit. I'm like biting my tongue, thinking, "Oh my god, I've just nailed that." Right, let's go again. So I did it again. Sorry, I'm really sorry. There's a plane going over somewhere. No way. And I'm like, is this guy for real? Like this is YouTube. This is not a frigging Spielberg, right. Film. This is YouTube,
right?
And maybe my fault. It's my fault. This is the first time I've worked with a professional videographer. This is what I just thought happened. Mm-hmm. This is what I thought was normal. I didn't know. I don't know this world. So anyway, cut a long story short, in that day, instead of the 20 videos we had done, because of all the stopping and starting, the retakes, this, that, and the other, we probably got 5 done. Okay. And that really hurt me because that wasn't worked out in my calculations of how I can return my investment on this.
Right.
And about 2 weeks later, he'd edited these videos, and it's what you see on the channel now. I mean, when I look back, I absolutely got ripped off, like ridiculously got ripped off. When I look back at it now, because I remember I had to hire all the equipment, I had to pay him for his editing, I had to pay him for the day's filming. And I got 5 videos out of it, which are just so bad. Like they're better than what I could have done. But that was a really important learning lesson for me because I soon realized it's not how much you spend on cameras. It's not how much you spend in production or editing or professional help. Right. I started to realize this is YouTube. It's not about that. Right. It needs to be raw. There needs to be some mess ups. If I get my lines wrong, I'll just laugh it off. Right. So I decided to then start making my own content because I knew what I didn't want to do with using that fella. I knew then what I wanted to do a bit more. So I just researched. In fact, I got a little bit of help from a friend who could do a bit of editing. Mm-hmm. And I started making just completely my own videos on iPhone or iPad. I would film it, edit it, and get it out. And I reckon for the first couple of months, I honestly thought to myself, why am I doing this? Like, why am I even trying? Because I'm getting next to no views. Like, right. I'm getting 100 views on a video. I'm like,
so it wasn't translating yet. It just doesn't more clients at it was your goal. It wasn't translating yet. Okay.
Not yet. So it probably, I don't know how long the time frame was. It felt like an eternity, but it probably wasn't. I remember getting the very first phone call from somebody outside of Manchester who wanted a golf lesson. And my phone rang and it's a random number and I'm like, hello, Rick speaking. He goes, and he's a guy from Newcastle, which again, location wise to you guys is probably 3.5 hours from Manchester, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Not a normal commute for us Brits. For you guys, that's just going to the shops around the corner, right? 3.5 hours.
Pretty much, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But to us, that's like a big journey. And this guy, he was called Steve. He's had to go past hundreds and hundreds of golf pros on his journey from Newcastle down to me in Manchester. And at that moment, I thought, oh my God, it's worked. Something's worked. I've had, and the phone call when I've seen your videos on YouTube. I love the way that you deliver your lessons. Can you coach me? And what was mad with YouTube, and I still think it's this day, he absolutely presumed I was the busiest golf coach in the world because I'm doing YouTube. Like he's saying to me, Rick, when can I get in? I'll do anything. Can I, do you even still coach? Was the questions. I'm like, yeah, cool. Like I'm in. So I'm thinking to myself, I better not seem too eager and say tomorrow. So I said, I can probably squeeze you in sometime next week.
Yeah.
so
that's what you say. I'm kind of a big deal. Yeah. Pretend like you're bigger than you are, though. Yeah, I'm kind of a big deal, but let me see what I can do.
Yeah, I can squeeze you in. So from that point, to be honest with you, I never looked back. The teaching diary, I carried on making videos. The teaching diary got outrageously busy. I went from 4th on the sales list to 3rd to 2nd to 1st to 1st with a head start. Everything like that. It was all down to me putting myself out there, and instead of coaching the 10-mile radius around Manchester, I was now starting to coach not only people from all four corners of England, but also in Scotland, in Wales were coming seeing me. I had clients from Ireland flying over. I had a guy from Orlando. Probably in the first 6 months of doing YouTube, I had a guy from Orlando fly over to take a golf lesson with me. Wow. And all of my other golf pros that work with me were like gobsmacked, like the jaws are like, what? How the hell has this happened? But it was twofold. Well, it was a few things. I love technology, as I mentioned earlier. I love social media. I love golf coaching. I actually came out of school with 2 main qualifications, which was PE, so physical education, and drama, so theatrical arts.
Yeah.
So in a weird way, I've kind of everything that I've loved and I've been passionate about.
Well, those are 2 things
I've kind of managed to blend into
next to each other. Drama and PE. I mean, it's you got an interesting path there right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I loved doing drama at school. Like it was one of my favorite subjects. I loved being in plays. I loved being on the stage. I loved kind of talking in front of people. It never fazed me, never bothered me. And obviously, I loved sports and I loved golf. So it took me a long time, probably even just in the last 3 or 4 years, have I actually come up with that kind of conclusion, that summary, and to gone, oh my God, the 2 things I loved at school have somehow turned into a job. And I didn't realize it at the time. So yeah, that's the kind of long version. I should have said that was the short version then, shouldn't I?
Well, I tell you what, another thing, I mean, I find interesting as far as a differentiator too, is how you mentioned like getting that in the first take, how you were comfortable on camera right off the bat, because I think that's another thing that holds a lot of, even now in a day where arguably even a lot of golf coaches aspire to do what you do. They see you, and I think you've brought a lot of people onto the platform because of that. But I think what holds them back is that there may be excellent teachers, but that camera turns on and they're just, they're not comfortable, and you can see it and you can feel it and it just doesn't translate. So did you you said you nailed it on the first take, but did you know it right away that you were good on camera, and was it something you wanted to do? Like, I like this. I enjoy being in front of the camera.
I didn't mind it. It didn't bother me. It wasn't unusual for me to be in front of camera and, like I say, talking and communicating. Because even when I used to deliver my lessons, I almost felt like my teaching bay was like a theatre. And I'm kind of the compare. Like I loved that kind of theatrical aspect to my lessons, where it was very energetic and it was exciting and it was memorable. I wanted people to walk out my teaching bay and going, wow, like not only did I really enjoy that lesson, I improved, but that's going to last with me for a long time, because that Rick was really energetic or really excitable or whatever it may be. That was something that I always tried to be passionate about.
Yeah, make it memorable.
Yeah, but I must admit now, I thought I was comfortable in camera, in front of camera. I thought I was good in front of camera, but it only takes me now to look back at my old videos and go, "Oh, you were tricking yourself because you weren't that good."
Well,
I think I was comfortable, but wasn't good. But what I've been, obviously now I'm comfortable, and I feel like I've got a little bit better from those kind of early days.
Gotcha. Well, so speaking of those early days, obviously you're a bit of an anomaly at that point. No one else is, especially in your close group there, is doing anything with YouTube, social media. But early on, there were some other guys. I'm thinking Peter Finch, Andy Carter, who've seen they were early in the platform too, and they've also seen tremendous success. So it's something that they've been able to do and develop in their own way. How did you link up with those guys in those early days? Did you end up just finding people who were thinking and working like you?
No. They do you not know the story about those guys?
We just doing a deep dive in your channel, I see them very early on, but I don't know how you first linked up with them.
So we all went to college together.
Okay.
So between 16 and 18, we all went to golf college over here in the UK. And there was 30 odd students in golf college. Me and Andy were really good friends because we lived in at golf college, as a number of us did. Pete was in our class, but he lived quite close to golf college, so he would commute in and out every day. So we didn't become as close to Pete then, because a lot of our friendships were obviously social circles. We'd go out together, we'd have nights out. We were sleeping we were dorming at the college. Mm-hmm. So that's how the three we didn't know each other at all beforehand, nothing at all. Even though weirdly we didn't live that far away from each other. We knew nothing about each other before, but in golf college, that's kind of where we met. When we left golf college, or I left golf college at 18, I think Pete did as well, and I think Andy carried on till 21. So fast forward a couple of years, over here in the UK, when you become a PGA professional, you go through training, you go through 3 years of training. And part of that training, you do a 1-week residential at the Belfry. Which is where the Ryder Cup's been hosted loads of times. Mm-hmm. It's the home of the PGA here in the UK. So for that 1-week residential, you do lectures, you do practicals, whatever. And again, 30 odd students, probably even more maybe, who were doing the PGA would all be at that residential. Funny enough, Peter Finch was on my residential. He was also now doing his PGA as I was, which wasn't a natural pathway from golf college. It really wasn't. But just coincidentally, we crossed paths again at the PGA. And we spent a week drinking, messing about, whatever, right? And became good friends from that. Mm-hmm. So probably another year went by and residential came up again. So me and Pete would then be messaging each other saying, are you going on this certain week? Because we want to be kind of pals together. Mm-hmm. So again, we meet up on the year 2 of residential, and again for year 3 of residential. So in a 3-year window, I see him for 3 weeks. I saw him 1 week every year, but nothing in between, literally nothing. So this was then probably about, I would have been maybe 19 or 20 roughly that time, around about that time. So when I started at the golf centre I was talking about in Manchester, mm-hmm. I'd been there probably about 2 years when a new vacancy became available. And we wanted to go from 4 professionals to 5 professionals because we had the capacity to do so. At this point, I was already killing it on sales. I was already had my YouTube channel. It was at that point of view, from a golf coaching point of view, I was the busiest. My diary was fuller than full. So when this vacancy came up, Andy Carter, my good friend from college, and we'd met a few times between college and this point. He was working over in Ireland, but I know he wanted to get back to the UK, back to England. So I messaged him saying, by the way, Andy, there's a job vacancy coming up at Trafford. I think you could do really well here. Apply for the job. So he applied. And weirdly enough, I actually interviewed him.
I think you could do well. I'm interviewing you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So shock, he got the job, but he deserved it as well. So he started at Trafford Golf Centre with me and three other pros. So it was 5 of us, and he was seeing kind of what success I had, but he was happy to kind of feature on my channel. So I would, let's say I'm going playing a golf course. I would then say to him, "Oh, are you off on Monday?" He'd say, "Yeah." I'd say, "Why don't you come with me? I'm going filming. You can come on the channel." So he went, "Great, not a problem." Like, he saw the return I was getting from YouTube and thought, well, yeah, if I can feature on your channel, great. So he featured on my channel quite a few times over the next kind of 6 months or so. About a year later, we had one of the pros left, not Andy, another pro. So a new job vacancy came available. We were getting applicants, just normal applicants, and kind of our director of golf at the time said, "Oh, guys, I've had an application here from a lad I think you might know, Peter Finch." And me and Andy obviously was like, "Oh yeah, Pete, yeah, absolutely. You know, is there a good recommendation? Yeah, get Pete in." Anyway, Pete obviously gets the job. So at this point, again, I'm fully busy. I'm absolutely killing the coaching. Andy Carter's getting busier because he's featuring on my channel a little bit. He's got good drive. You know, he wants to get busy. So then Pete joins the team. Which I can't quite remember the year. I'm going to probably guess 2013. A guess 2012 back end of. So he joins the professional team as well. Now, Pete again featured on some of my videos at the time. So this time, now it was a bit of like Andy Carter was on my channel, Pete was on my channel, and kind of we were mixing together. We were going playing different golf courses. But I think it soon realised that Pete, unlike Andy, probably wanted to kind of set up his own channel.
Okay.
So what was funny about this, though, he would do it when I kind of wasn't there or wasn't watching, and he would do it like tucked away around the corner. And I remember coaching one day, looking around the corner and going, "Is he making a video? Is he making a video over there?" I'm like, "Oi!" Like, I was like, "Videos are my thing. You can't do videos." Right. So I'd been going about a year or so at this point. I can't remember how many subscribers I'd had, but you know, it definitely had a direct correlation of how busy I was as a golf coach. And Pete could see that and thought, well, I want a slice of that pie, please. I want to be busy. Right. And I remember seeing his first video. I remember seeing it being filmed live, and I remember seeing it go on YouTube, and I was like, oh, actually, that's quite good. He's actually better than I thought he was going to be. Again, self-taught like me. Yep. So over the next kind of 2 or 3 years, I was obviously really busy in my coaching. YouTube kind of became monetized at about this time as well, because up until this point, YouTube wasn't monetized. Like zero money, making zero money from YouTube. But how I was making my money and how I could justify it because how busy I became as a golf coach.
Right, bringing the lessons in.
When YouTube became, because that was my reward, let's say. So then the year when monetization came in, it was like, well, hold on, I'm making about as much money now as I would do as a busy day coaching. Why don't I take a day out my coaching diary, which, by the way, at that point I was still doing 6 days a week. I'll take a day out my coaching diary and make more YouTube content, make better YouTube content, because it's paying for itself now.
Right.
And over time, that slide kept going and going and going until kind of it's gone the other way now, where I only do YouTube and I don't actually coach. But it was just a gradual thing where when the money went up, it made me realize, well, actually, maybe I could have a Saturday off and see my wife or wife-to-be or whatever it may be. And then obviously when I had kids, it was like, well, I'll take a full weekend off and just work Monday to Friday and do 3 days coaching and 2 days YouTube. So anyway, I kind of fast forwarded a bit there. So at this time, Pete started his YouTube channel. He was seeing the success I was having. He was starting to do videos on his own, but also we were collaborating a lot together. Me, Pete, Carter would plug in. It was never really Carter's interest to set up his own channel. He wasn't that bothered at the time. He's changed his mind a little bit now and again over the last 10 years or so because he's seen success in different ways. But we would kind of collectively we'd go on Pete's channel, he'd go on my channel, Carter would jump between channels. And again, we saw a very, very, very similar outcome. Pete became very busy.
Mm-hmm.
As the second busiest golf coach.
We got to maintain that ranking. That's right. Yeah.
So as the second busiest golf coach.
So staying on Peter, speaking of that, I want to talk about Quest. So you left Manchester and started Quest with Peter?
So me and Pete were doing loads of videos together. Without getting into the kind of legality, there was something that Trafford fell through a little bit that kind of made me think about maybe looking at a different facility to coach at, because I didn't particularly need the footfall from Trafford anymore, because I was already bringing in my own footfall. Like, people were traveling to see me, not coming to the centre. Mm-hmm. So I just hinted at Pete, I gave him a bit of a heads up saying, just let you know, pal, I'm probably going to look to move elsewhere. Don't really know where yet, but I am going to look at moving somewhere. And he just very quickly, without really too much hesitation, said, well, can I come with you? Can we do it kind of together? And we were doing loads of videos and stuff together at the time. So I was like, well, yeah, it's absolutely fine. Like, it breaks up my cost. It doesn't cost me as much to set up somewhere. Right. It kind of makes sense. Yeah. So we ended up finding a facility over in Lytham, where like Royal Lytham is, and some amazing golf courses over there, like near Royal Birkdale as well, not far from there. So we went there to a driving range, and we converted 2 driving range bays into the Quest Golf Academy, which it became. Kind of just an umbrella branding. It was never anything formal. It was just a name that we kind of came up with. I think Pete was doing a lot of his like Quest for 350 yards and Quest for this and Quest for that. So it kind of just tagged in. And we spent a year at the new facility over in Lytham. Again, filming loads together, filming individually, having lessons coming in, coming out. And that kind of lasted really nicely until another facility became available, which is a little bit more inland, nearer to Manchester. So we end up moving there together, a slightly more modern facility. And again, we probably spent 4 years there, again, making videos together, teaching. Sometimes, what was funny at the time, though, because we were making a lot of videos on our own as well, and because we shared the coaching bay, his days when he was in coaching, I was off. Mm-hmm. Days that I was in filming, he was away. Days that I was in coaching, he was off. So actually, sometimes if we didn't collaborate, we actually might not see each other for months, just the way it worked, because we were focusing much more on our own content at that point, and we were more focusing, I went down more the path of club reviewing or doing other videos or whatever, and Pete wanted to continue with his kind of journey on getting better in his quest for the Open. So there was times where we might not see each other for ages, but the audience still thought we were like kind of seeing each other every day, because that's the outcome. It looks like that.
Mm-hmm.
Would you put the club review path? I want to talk about that, because would you consider that almost like a turning point for your YouTube channel? Starting to dive into
that clubs? Happened really. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? If you look back on the channel, that actually happened really early on in the channel. It was more for me. Why did I do? I don't know why I quite did it, if I'm honest with you. I probably just thought to myself, if I only do coaching videos, I might run out of ideas.
Yeah,
I need other strands of content, and a lot of people, because I didn't work at a golf shop, a lot of people would ask for my advice on equipment because I was impartial. I had no connection. Yeah, I didn't need to know you were going to buy the latest and greatest driver. My sole goal was to help you get the best equipment for you and not get ripped off. So I think maybe that stemmed with my just natural interest in technology, probably just kind of circulated, and I ended up doing club reviews and testing. And the one that kind of went viral for me to a degree at the time, this would have been the start of 2013 maybe, when Nike brought out the very first Nike Covert driver.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And there was a rep that came into, there's an American golf shop at Trafford Golf Centre where I worked, but there were separate entities. Like, that was a golf shop. I didn't work in there. I just coached at the facility. So a rep came down from Nike showing off these new Nike Covert drivers, right? I had no idea of the word embargo. Like,
Right.
you were talking a different language to me if you said that to me back then.
Mhm.
Right.
So I remember saying to this guy, I remember saying to this Nike rep, "Oh, that's amazing. Do you mind if I just borrow these drivers and give them a hit?" And he went, "Yeah, of course you can. Go ahead." So I took these Nike drivers again back. I'm sure it was start of 2013. Set up my cameras really, really quickly. Whacked a load of shots on Flight Scope, and kind of did a bit of a review of them. Next day, I posted it online. This was like, this is the first time anybody had seen these Nike drivers. Like, and you got some bloke in Manchester not having a genuinely at the time, not thinking I'd done anything wrong. I honestly didn't realize that it was kind of, not right to do. I mean, I really didn't end up getting a bollocking, but I think the Nike rep probably got a bit of a roasting. But and I think then, because let's say a coaching video would get me at the time 1,000 views in a week, let's say, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I remember this Nike video getting like 1,000 views in like the first 3 hours. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh,
onto something. Yeah.
People are interested in this sort of stuff. And because, again, even back at that Nike video, I didn't care if you bought it or not. That wasn't my intention. I just wanted to give you a bit of information, what I thought about it. Did it sound good? Did it do what it should do? And that's still evident right now in today's reviews that I do. That's the same premise. It's just obviously advanced a bit. But what's weird now is reviews are a nice part of the channel, but they're not the big part of the channel. Like, reviews very rarely change the dial for us, move the needle. They just don't.
Because it's super cool now that there's a lot of people out there that won't go spend $600 on a stealth unless they hear what Rick Shiels has to say about it, and you've come a long way. And that's
awesome. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's 12 years of trust. Sure. I'd like to think I've built with my audience. 12 years of not massively changing my stance on what I think about equipment, getting excited about new equipment.
Right.
Because I love new equipment. I love it.
Sure.
I love it. But I'm also a realist, and I'm also still, going back to my core, I'm still a golf coach. And I know these golf clubs are lovely, and they have advanced enormously in the last 10 years, 12 years. But if you want to get better at golf, you're better off fixing your swing rather than buying a £600 driver or $600 driver. Right. But people do get excited about equipment, and I've got no issues whatever if somebody wants to go out and buy a 10 grand set of clubs. Not an issue. Just as long as you manage your expectations, knowing that 10 grand set of clubs isn't going to make you, a scratch golfer overnight.
Right. Mm-hmm. And now you've managed, as you said, to stay kind of with that philosophy and be independent. Now you have the biggest YouTube channel in the world now. I got to imagine that the brand deals come knocking. Is it something for you? Is it a philosophy where you just say, I want to remain independent and I want to say what I can say and whatever it may be? Or is it a monetary decision? It just makes more, sense revenue wise to stay independent. How do you process that out?
Yeah, I think I'm incredibly selective with brand partners. So every brand partner I've had so far, whether it was Nike for clothing, I only signed with Nike for clothing because they'd stopped making equipment. I wouldn't have signed with Nike if they still made equipment. Similar to any real brand that makes equipment, I wouldn't massively sign with them because I just think there's always a question mark over then the authenticity of the review. Mm-hmm. And for me, again, this has taken 12 years to build this confidence with my audience, or 11 years to build this confidence with my audience. Trust. It's too valuable to me.
Yeah.
That is too, it sounds daft. It's almost hard to put a price tag on it because I honestly think that's a huge part of the success and the growth is that it doesn't feel like an advert. It's not. If anything, I'm on the side of the consumer massively more than I am of the manufacturers. So, you're right. I have many, many, many brand deals that come through, and we have to sift through ones that are good or bad. but I must admit 98% of them go on the no pile.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, it's just not worth it for me. The channel's doing well. It's not a money thing, as in these brand deals almost can't justify the spend, because if you actually put a price on eyeballs, it's a bloody lot of money.
Right.
And so we get comfortably over 11 million views a month. Like that's a lot of reach.
Right.
So a lot of the time, even if brands do come in, I sometimes kind of play around with it and go, well, this kind of, if you were to get involved, this is the potential reach, this is the potential numbers. And sometimes they say no, which is fine, because I'm like, it doesn't make me look like the bad guy then. I'm like, but I'm not, when I say these brands, let me just make this very clear. This is not manufacturers. This is, I've never, ever, pretty much every single manufacturer out there in golf has put an offer down on the table in the last 12 years. To 11, I keep saying 12, 11 years. And every time I've said no, because it's just, for me, it's just not worth it. It's just, and I've seen other YouTubers do it. I'm not sure if it's worked out for them or not, but I think just for me, it's just a straight no, and I'll kind of stick with that.
Yeah. Well, what you said early on when we were first talking was saying about how YouTube, to a certain extent, has to be raw and real. And I think people would pick up very quickly if something wasn't, honest or something. It would be very see-through. So it's great that, you picked up on that so early and just knew that, like, and you started even before YouTube, as you said, building that community with Twitter by just having fun doing it and offering people value. And by being able to continue doing that with this, I think it's, why change that formula of such great success? And plus you can, you lay your head at night knowing, you've been very honest with your community and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, for example, obviously you guys with Titleist Footjoy, I'm guessing you don't review then the new TaylorMade driver.
Well, kind of funny, believe it or not, they've encouraged us many times to review other equipment.
Who have Titleist?
Titleist has reviewed many times, because also our journey being a little different. We started with the website and the blog and more from an editorial standpoint.
Of course.
And then we brought YouTube on a little bit later. So we were doing some sort of reviews, but more of our hesitation, honestly, from doing any type of reviews has just been that we've always held us back, saying we're not pros. We don't know enough. Now, we've been in the golf long enough. We're starting to get a better understanding of equipment. And we've been even pushed a little bit by some of our audience by saying, hey, we want to hear what a average golfer feels when they hit this club. So we've been dabbling with it. But
of course,
that's one of the biggest reasons why we've worked with Titleist and Footjoy as long as we have, is because they've never, ever in any way said they wanted to control our content in any way. It was one of those things that I feel like, when you feel like
it's not
someone
like,
matches,
Yeah.
Like sorry, I cut you off.
I can't imagine you do shoe reviews.
We don't, but I've also just never quite known how to do a shoe review.
But like, I know it is hard. I believe it or not, I've actually got some shoe reviews on my channel which I regret. But like, let's say for example, if you're hitting a new whatever driver, TaylorMade, Callaway, whatever, and again, this is just my stance on it, and I think you're somewhat similar. Even though internally you might say to yourself, I'm going to be as honest as I possibly can right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you whether this TaylorMade driver is the best thing I've ever hit or the worst thing I've ever hit. Okay.
Right.
Even though you might be able to absolutely swear that that's what you're going to say, as soon as the audience see that you've got a Titleist hat on,
right,
can they actually, and regardless of whether you are right or wrong, can they fully 100% trust what you're saying? And I'm not, and that's
totally
that's my only thing that I'm super, super, super protective about. This is why I don't really film at any golf manufacturers' facilities. I have in the past, I hold my hands up, but I don't anymore, because again, it just looks like they're smoozing me. I'm getting in bed with them. It's not about that anymore. Like, send me a product, give me the information, I'll review it, and I'll do it in my own way, impartial as possible. You don't have any say in it. So it's like, but then the only time I'd ever look to, unless I stopped doing reviews, unless I absolutely said, right, I'm no longer doing reviews, then as long as I'm still doing reviews, I'll never sign with a manufacturer.
Yeah.
There you go.
And look, like I said, you can't argue with the success because it's worked so well for you, and people do. They truly, as Mike was saying before, some people will not buy a piece of equipment until they hear what Rick has to say about it. And I think that is truly a testament to that. And you know, it is different for all different YouTubers. And I think that's one of the best parts about YouTube as a space in general is it allows so many different voices in the game. And you know, and for us, it's been like a very specific decision thus far to not do too much other equipment, and that's really just been because we want to make sure we can purely provide that value. And we feel like there's guys out there like yourself who are you can hit that same spot on the driver face every time and give some accurate numbers, and we're 12 handicaps. Well, I didn't hit that one great, so I don't know if I'm giving that but there's a space and a voice for that. But for us, it's just always been, we've never had a script. We feel like if we're just dead honest and dead ourselves when that camera comes on, then let people after that, let whatever people want to infer, what people may trust us, they may not, but at least they're getting fully us. So we'll get on, we'll be like, hey, we're Titleist guys. We love Titleist. We play Titleist, and they're one of our sponsors. But that being said, we're going to hit this club and tell you what we think. And as long as you're not, I felt if you're not hiding anything, this is from our side. I mean, I truly, totally understand everything you do. For our side, as long as we're fully, just all upfront and honest, then again, I can sleep well at night knowing I've done my community justice.
Yeah,
you know,
I think in this day and age, well, with so many question marks on trust, I honestly think. That even though I love Twitter so much, or I kind of loved it, I don't love it quite as much anymore. I think some skeptics just can't fathom or believe that nothing corrupt or dodgy is going on. Like they can't understand that it's as transparent as I'm possibly telling them. And I'll tell them till I tell them till I'm blue in the face, but they almost just can't. They can't understand that. Yeah, I've got all this reach. Surely someone's got to be paying you. Yeah. No. The only people pay me are YouTube, so that's the people who pay me. So as long as you watch my videos, then that's happy. I'm happy days.
Right. And that's at the end of the day, you get to that point where it's like, you can only concern yourself with so much. We like to focus on the people that you can help, the people who are getting value. There's always going to be someone who doesn't like your content, doesn't like you. And that's why I said, it's good to have so many different personalities that are out there.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's fast forward a little bit and talk a little bit more currently. We started talking at the beginning of the show of it. So we had those 7 years. Like I said, you're certainly no overnight sensation. You know what I mean? That used a lot of hard work, as you talked about, yourself, your team, the transitions, the collabs. But it took about 7 years to grow the channel from 0 to about 500,000 subscribers. And then something in these past 2.5, 3 years, 2 years since we last saw you, when you were right around that mark, it's been a rocket ship to 2 million. And beyond, refresh it now. There's going to be 1,000 more subscribers on your channel. So that said, what do you feel like it's been in this last little bit? Has it been a change in focus in you? Has it been a growth of the game in general? What has it been that's kind of really jettisoned you recently?
I think it's a combination of a few things. I think it's understanding what content works personally. Mm-hmm. So it's sitting down. So you're right. I've got a team now. So I have like a right-hand man who's my content director, who's Guy, who obviously is on the podcast with me as well. He started with me 4 years ago, and that's no coincidence that the channel has kind of boomed since that moment. I brought on more editors, so I've got 4 editors now on the team. And I've got like a commercial manager. I've actually got an assistant now, like a PA, because I've realised, and I remember, do you know Marquez Brownlee, the tech reviewer?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yep.
So Marquez really nicely said recently that he was like an octopus with 8 arms, and he was doing all these jobs, but he soon realised that the arm number 6 wasn't his strength, whatever that may be. For me, arm number 6 was analytics of the YouTube channel. What are these numbers? What are these graphs? I don't know anything about it. Right. I'm not good enough at this. I'm a golf pro, and I'll hit golf shots, and I kind of know how to edit a little bit, but that's not my forte. I need to cut that arm off and give it to someone else. And that's where kind of Guy got brought involved. Editing. My Siri keeps kicking in. Every time I talk, my Siri keeps kicking in. Is it picking up on you guys or not?
We don't hear it. No,
we don't
she's
hear
just
it.
bugging you in the
fine.
ear. Yeah.
So for example, editing, as much as I found it enjoyable, I didn't have the time to do it anymore. That's where again I've got to cut off one of my arms and give it to somebody else and give it to one of my editors. So that I listening to Marquez Brownlee say all those things. There was a huge tech review with 10 million odd subscribers.
Yep.
10 million subscribers. It kind of made me realize that's what I've done without really realizing. I've just strengthened my team. I've become less protective of what I can control and have to give responsibility to other people. Gotcha. And when Guy kind of joined the team, he was always a huge fan of YouTube. I used to work with him. So when I talked before, when I was at Trafford Golf Centre, he actually worked in the American Golf retail shop. So even though we weren't actually colleagues, we worked under the same roof. Mm-hmm. And I even remember back then, he was just so fascinated about the latest iPhone I had. We had like a connection there. He was fascinated that I was doing all this YouTube stuff. He was asking me loads of questions. So I always kind of knew he was kind of really interested. Then he went working for Nike and actually ended up getting made redundant. And he reached out to me saying, do you know of any jobs coming available? And I said, well, actually, it's funny you say that. I could do with it. I could do with a guy. I could do with someone like you to help me. I need assistance. I need help. Like, this is getting too much for me sometimes. And then what we did then is we proper just sat down and went, right, what content works? Like, what actually works? Not what do we think works? Not what do we love, making as such. What works? What are those videos that people cannot not watch? Like, even if they don't like you, they have to watch it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because I know there's loads of people that don't like me. I get it. But as long as I can make a great video that they still enjoy the video, they might hate me and that's fine. As long as they still enjoy the video, then great. So once we started to realize that, we could really start to kind of diversify what we made. Instead of making 10 different strands of content, we kind of whittled it down to 3 or 4 different strands of content, but we tried to do them really, really well. And we just thought differently. Like, we didn't just go out and, unlike everything in beforehand, I didn't just flick on the camera and go, I don't really know what I'm going to say today.
Right.
Okay, I'll just wing it. I'll just chat. We started to put a bit more thought into it, and we started to put a little bit more planning into it, and we started to think about, we sit down and actually brainstorm ideas, something I've never done. Before that kind of stage, I'd never done that. It was just, what should I shoot today? That seems like a good idea. Let's go. Well, now we started to sit down and go, oh yeah, I like that idea. What about if we did this? What about if we added that element? What about if we made it this length? What about if we did this as the thumbnail or that as the title or whatever it may be? And we just looked at it, to be honest with you, like a business. Yeah. Like, it was less of a hobby anymore, and it was a business. I was taking on staff. Like,
yeah, it sounds like you're building quite a team around you at this point.
Yeah, but the editors, at that point, probably when I saw you, 2019, I only had 2 members of staff at the time. So gotcha. Tim, my videographer, and Guy, my right-hand man, that was at that very moment in time. Oh, I'm a commercial manager. But he's not kind of day-to-day. He's more when I need him. So it was then we were starting to think, well, what do we need to do? Like, where do we need to be? What's the goals? What's the ambitions? And just structured it like a business, like an operational big boy business.
So Rick, when you and Guy are sitting in a room talking content, I mean, are there other YouTubers that you guys look to, other golf YouTubers, other YouTubers outside of golf that you and Guy say, I like what they're doing? And who are those creators?
It 100%. Sometimes it's golf. We watch a lot of golf YouTube. I think sometimes golf YouTubers say they don't watch other golf YouTubers, which if they're not, you are missing a massive trick. I think some people act like cool and go, I don't watch any other golf YouTubers. I'm thinking, are you for real? I watch everybody. Everybody. I know what everybody's doing on their channels because it's so important.
Yeah.
I want to know what amazing cameras you're using, or what shot traces you're doing, or that cool drone FPV drone one that you did. I want to know everything of everything. I want to know who shot it, where did you shoot it, what was the numbers. I'm going to check it in a week to see how successful it was, because if it's successful, guess what? That's my next video.
There you go.
So I think some people are a bit timid or scared, or have this kind of stigma that, you know, I don't copy anyone. Well, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Personally, if a YouTuber channel isn't copying my content, let's say, I think they're not. I think they're doing something wrong personally, but I don't want them to. But if I was setting up, you know, I think that, you know, it's not to everyone's style, but it works.
Yeah. It's funny. We cut a golf ball open a couple months ago, and we just got destroyed. Like, wait till Rick sees this. Wait till Rick sees this. And I said, hey, we just got this ball. We wanted.
But that's it. But that's the noise. That's the bits you've got to look past and go, well, was it an important part of this video? Did it work? Was it something that we've seen success elsewhere? And obviously, there's always going to be little sound bites or trademarks that creators have established as their own, let's say. But there's other things that everyone else can do. So yeah, I watch a lot of YouTube, golf YouTube.
What do you think of Garrett and Good?
A lot of YouTube. Love them.
What do you think of Garrett and Good? Killing it, right? Yeah,
their growth has been tremendous.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, killing it. I watch with great interest, and I watch what works for them, and I've seen areas that don't work for them as well, which I can't wait to collaborate with them, because I'd love to share those bits of information, because I obviously, when they set up the Bro 5 thing with Brody, I thought to myself, this has got potential, but obviously that crumbled and didn't kind of come to fruition. I look at this and go, I don't want to see that happen with this good. They seem like a much tighter knit group of individuals. Right. So yeah, they're absolutely killing it. I love what they're doing. They bring it, and again, I think some golf creators can get jealous of like other successful golf creators, but every successful golf creator is bringing more viewers to the channel, to the YouTube.
Yes, and
so I don't see now.
Likewise, I would argue they bring more views to your channel through suggested videos. You know,
that's what I'm saying.
Exactly. 100%. Somebody does a great video, it lifts every golf channel's video, and I think that's what you said there. Like, really stands out of just saying, like, I can't wait to see him so that I can share information and talk and pick his brain.
Is that collab in the works, by the way?
It's been in the works for like 3 years.
Yeah,
just with travel and stuff, but. Well, we were supposed to be collaborating in January, because I was supposed to go out to Vegas, but I got cancelled. I was debating going to Dubai last week when they were in Dubai, just with Garrett, but then it wasn't the full good lot, and I want to kind of do it with the full good lads. So yeah, and then, you know, it even stems back to why I ended up doing the YouTube Golf Day.
Yeah,
like, I wanted to do YouTube Golf Day because I honestly believe, like, rising tides rise together.
Yeah.
Like, if all these YouTube channels are killing it, I obviously want to be number one. That's just my competitive edge and my nature. But it'll only drive me further forward. It's only driven me further forward seeing good doing it. Because I'm like, nobody's catching me. I'm going to make my content even better.
Right.
As much as I can still respect what they're doing, it's not a what's the right word? It's not a kind of a jealousy standpoint. I'm looking at them going, okay, come and catch me, boys, because I'm going to keep pushing harder. It's a motivator. That's what I'm saying. It's like a motivator, which is great. And and then other creators I watch. I talked about Marquez Brownlee. I watch loads of Marquez Brownlee. I watch like Dude Perfect, Casey Neistat, the usuals that we've probably all watched as fans. You know, I'm trying to think who's on my subscriber list at the moment. Let me give you a rundown of my favorite subscribers. Like Unbox Therapy, I love. Car Wow is a car company over here. Nelk Boys. Which again, I'm never going to make content like the Nelk Boys, but I can watch their video and go, oh, I quite like what they did there. That transition was quite cool. And then and I'll timestamp it and send it to my editors and go, I love this. Can we do this next time? Right. I watch like loads of shorts at the moment. I watch I'm subscribed to loads of YouTube information channels that are giving advice and information about YouTube, because I don't know everything at all. And on a platform that's forever changing, I need to keep up to date with what's current, what's working, what are the trends, what are people seeing, what's a good click-through rate, what's a good retention time, what's a good kind of A/B testing in thumbnails. I need to know all of that, or at least us as a team collectively need to know all of that.
Right. I think that's just it. It's like you said earlier, you don't want to, and what I was saying before is like sticking your head in the sand as a YouTuber or a content creator. It just, the long game, it just doesn't seem to work. Some people feel like they're onto something and they want to protect it. But the reality is, still going back to that thing you said earlier about it being very raw, we're learning, everybody's learning. You have to be able to, as you said, use that tide and work together. And I like what you said earlier, saying you can't wait to collab with, let's say, a guy like Garrett so that you can share information and talk. I think a lot of people from the outside looking in, they think it's a very competitive thing and they think these guys must not share much or talk much. But one thing that I've always valued and always appreciated, that you've always been so open to helping. I mean, when we first did YouTube Golf Day, we only had 10,000 subscribers and you welcomed us aboard. And I remember when we were debating what we were going to do with our own podcast on YouTube, because we've been doing our podcast for years and years and years, but as an audio only platform, started experimenting with it with our main channel and just found it was killing our channel. It was so different than the rest of our content, this long form. And remember messaging you and saying, hey, Rick, what do you think? Should I move it on another channel? And just, it's something that I've valued deeply, that you take the time as the biggest golf YouTuber to get back to me with your thoughts and your true and honest thoughts and saying, hey, you know, and we weighed it out and you talked a little bit about it, but I just think that that's something that helps everyone. And I think it helps grow golf YouTube, which ultimately will grow the game. So very appreciative of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's only because I like you. I don't do it for everyone.
Now all of a sudden, yeah, your DMs are going to blow up with people wanting advice. But yeah.
Well, I'm still very selective, but no, I mean, one of my favorite bits, I didn't know how the YouTube Golf Day was going to go, and I'd love to do another one soon. I'm thinking potentially even this year, but there's an exclusive for you. And but like I remember that day just sitting around having a few drinks after we'd played, or even during the day, and going, how mad is that? Like, such a channel is talking to such a channel. That person's talking to that person. Oh, I thought those two hated each other, but now they're hugging and having a beer, and I'm thinking, this is amazing. But going back to your point, I still think we're hyper competitive, and I don't think competitive's bad. Like, going back to that story when I talked about being the pros, when I wanted to be number one on the pros, I was hyper competitive. Like, it's all I ever thought about. I still like the guys. I didn't hate the people who I was trying to compete against. It was almost my own competitiveness that was like, I just want to beat you. I can still like you and I still respect you, but I just want to beat you. I want to be number one. And I think that's similar to golf YouTube or any YouTube. Like, you should be competitive. You should be like driven, and doesn't mean you have to hate everyone else. It's your own drive. And sometimes competitiveness can sometimes manifest or turn to the outside public into like jealousy or hate, but I don't think it is.
Yeah, and I think it's funny. It even mirrors this game in general, how we can be so competitive when we're out there playing golf, but we're all good friends. Or you see like the PGA Tour, those guys are all good friends, but it doesn't erase that competitiveness. They want to beat each other on Sunday, but after that, you know, the last putt is dropped, they're out there, you know, traveling together and they're friends. So I think it's a good analogy with the two. We want to talk about the future of the channel a little bit, but first we just got to do a quick ad break. Hey guys, this episode is sponsored by Titleist. We all have different ability levels and goals, but one thing we share is that desire to bring our best every single time that we tee it up. And it all starts with choosing a golf ball that you can trust. So the Titleist Pro V1 is the best combination of speed, spin, and feel in the game. And the Pro V1 X gives you a higher flight and a firmer feel. Both deliver that long distance, consistent flight and soft feel. All important drop and stop greenside control. We love it when we can control that ball around the greens. Give us a little bit of a shorter putt. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So whether you're Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, or Nelly Korda competing at the game's highest levels or simply striving to be the best you can be, tee up a Pro V1, Pro V1X, and always bring your best. Find out more about the Pro V1 lineup at Titleist.com.
And don't forget to bring some heat to your game this year with the new Footjoy Fuel golf shoes. These shoes look awesome. In fact, we unboxed them on last week's episode of the podcast. I mean, they deliver a sneaker-like fit and feel packed full of golf-specific innovation for men, women, and even juniors. I mean, it features Footjoy's latest and lightest midsole called the Strato Light. Sounds light, right? And that delivers incredible comfort while still providing that terrific traction that we desire and that support that we need through the golf swing. So with all these vibrant colors, which I'm loving, I love that we got that orange and blue, the latest innovation, that athletic look and feel, the Footjoy Fuel appeals to players of all levels of the game. Whether the swing type, whatever it is, whether you're wearing shorts, skirts even, if you're playing 9, or if you're even playing 36, which we will be playing a bunch of next week in Tampa. So checking them out for yourself. Go see the Footjoy Fuel. They've been engineered to bring heat to your game. Learn more at footjoy.com. Now, back to the interview with Rick. All right, we're back here with Rick Shiels. Rick, want to talk about the Bryson interview. I enjoyed it. I mean, it was a great piece of content. Like I said to you, I messaged you. It got me through shoveling snow. I threw the AirPods in. It was a great listen. First off, did that take a while to put that one together?
Believe it or not, no. It was really, really easy.
Wow. That's great.
It was really easy.
That is great. Go ahead.
First off, can I just negotiate my terms on that ad read? I'm on 50%, right?
Yeah, you get 50%. Just let us know where to send it. We can do PayPal.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
We were just going to have you do the reads. Do you mind doing that?
Okay.
Then we can negotiate a higher rate.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. No, you know what? It was weirdly easy. So obviously we've been doing the podcast now, not as long as you guys. I think we're up to 115 episodes now. So I must admit, a lot of the episodes we have mentioned Bryson. He's a big talking point, as you know. Like he comes up in topics, whether it's about his distance, his controversy, or whatever. We've mentioned him a number of times, and obviously tagged him and clipped him, and normally does pretty good on views and listens. So we'd realised not too long ago that he actually followed the Rick Shiels Golf Show podcast Instagram. Which is like my second account, like a verified account with like 40,000 followers, and he just followed it randomly out of the blue. So we didn't do anything. We didn't act on it for ages. We thought it might have been a mistake or whatever. So about maybe a week before we actually did the podcast with Bryson, that's how close this is. Guy, who's obviously on the podcast, who manages the Rick Shiels Golf Show podcast Instagram. Saturday night, he'd had a few drinks. He decides to slide into Bryson's DMs, and just very nicely, hey Bryson, thanks for following the page. We'd love to get you on the podcast sometime. This was Saturday. Okay, he returned. Yeah, not a problem. How does Tuesday sound?
That's great.
So he got that liquid courage. He reached out, and it worked.
Correct. Now, to be honest, we actually had to rearrange that Tuesday because it didn't quite work out time-wise. We actually went a week later. But literally from Saturday night to the following week, locked in, loaded, did the podcast. So I'd love to say it was dead complicated. It wasn't. There was nothing more than that. A few people weird because it was around about the Cobra driver launch embargo, but it was nothing to do with Cobra. It just coincidentally happened like that. We spoke nothing about the real kind of driver or anything. And then, to be honest, since I've actually been brave enough to send a few more DMs and actually locked in 2 or 3 more absolute superstars.
Oh, nice.
So if you don't ask, you don't get, right? How did you get me on the podcast? You just asked me on Instagram,
Is it right? The same I just slid in.
You have to ask, right?
That's what I mean. So that's it. I think when certainly if I'd like to think he respects the channel, and after speaking to him, he really does. He watches the videos, and he's a fan of the YouTube channel as well. And obviously he's got his own YouTube channel, so he has something to plug a little bit as well. Right. So yeah, I think it was just mutual respect. I liked what he did, he liked what we did, and dead easy. And it came across nice.
It was great to see the real side of Bryson. I mean, it really was. And if you haven't listened to it, guys, go back and check out the interview. Like I said, it's a quick listen because it was just well structured. The questions were great. I had no idea he's never stepped foot on the old course. I mean, here's a guy who's, in the top 10 in the world, and he's never stepped foot on a course that a couple of schmoes have played here. So it's super cool to see that. Was there anything in that interview, Rick, that really surprised you?
He's only had one hole in... the fact he's only had one hole in one.
There you go. I know. How incredible was that? You would think a guy like Bryson, who's
crazy.
So mathematical, would have way more.
Well, and I've heard him speak recently. He's even become really a part of this YouTube community with as you said, his own channel. Yep. But he's a guy who is very analytical. He likes to dive into the analytics. I think he's hooked on that YouTube, that whole thing. And it's great to see him helping to lift, I guess we would say, the whole appearance and the whole visibility of golf YouTube by collaborating and appearing on other channels. So in that way, I think it's good for the game. But so you mentioned, I'm sure you can't tell us now, and that's okay, what some of these big guests are going to be, but is there a guest that you're really dying to get on the show?
It's
obvious.
obvious.
It's the obvious one. Okay. It's Tiger.
It's obvious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, no, Patrick Cantley.
There it is.
I'm joking. That's my sarcastic English humour not coming across there. No, because I would like Patrick on.
Yeah, of course. That's why
I would like Patrick on.
Right. We'd all love to have Patrick
but,
on. Right,
I don't know why I thought of him randomly first.
But
obviously Tiger would be the number one. And you know what? I've got a potential inroad. I might have to just send the message. It's just not directed to Tiger, but I don't think he checks his own DMs. But I don't. Who knows? If suddenly we manage to secure kind of 4 or 5 of the biggest names in golf, and it gets that kind of respect and that and that what's the right word? Kind of stamp of approval.
Yeah,
you never know. You never know what doors open. And I love podcasts. That's why I obviously agreed to this one as well. Like, you can just sit down for an hour and whatever, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and just go through so much stuff.
Yeah, right.
I think I'd be terrified with Tiger, and I'd worry about what questions to ask him, because I feel like everything in the world has been asked to him. I'd love to know if he watches YouTube. I'd love to know what his favorite YouTube channels are.
Absolutely.
I'd love to know. There's still so much more I'd love to know.
Well, we're going to be rooting for you to get that interview, because I'd love to hear it. I'm sure you'd love to talk to him. I'd love to listen in on that one. In a second, we're going to do our little rapid fire segment before we let you go. But the other question I have for you, obviously, we've been talking so much about YouTube here. You've had some experience in broadcast television, golf channel, things that you've done in the past. Future plans. Is there any aspiration to any of these other platforms? Are we going to see a Netflix series from Rick Shiels? Is there going to be something else, or is it you're just laser focused on YouTube now?
No, I'd never say no. So if the opportunity came up and it was a good opportunity, as much as I absolutely love YouTube, and YouTube's my home and it's my main platform, I'm also very kind of switched on in the fact that I've grown a pretty big Facebook following with like over 1 million followers on there. We're just nearly up to 600,000 on Instagram. I dabble in TikTok. It's not really my thing, but I've got a platform. I've got a presence on there. Obviously things like the podcast, not only the audio podcast, but the visual podcast. So I've always liked to try and spread the content, not as thinly as possible, make sure it hits all of these main platforms. And if tomorrow another social media platform that's going huge pops up, I'll be one of the first ones on there for sure, because you just never know where these platforms are going to go. And there's been a lot of times where I've invested time and energy into platforms such as things like Snapchat, and it's, in my opinion, it's kind of died as a social media platform, but at least I gave it a go, and at least I learned something from it. And I think, taking a lot of information from people like Gary Vaynerchuk, like this idea that obviously all these platforms come out, and you've got to be on them. You can't miss out. Right. So YouTube is there, obviously super high. It's the pillar of the business. But other things that I still think there's ridiculous amounts of opportunities elsewhere that doesn't detract from YouTube. That's different projects that I'd love to get involved in, that have, you know, more goals and ambitions of me as a kind of a legacy piece, and things that I've always wanted to try and accomplish in my kind of life, really. So there's the bigger picture things, but also like there's 65 million golfers in the world. That's a big number.
Yeah. It is.
I've only got 2 million subscribers. So I don't honestly, right now, I don't think we've even scratched the surface. I honestly don't think we have. Like, you know, I honestly think, well, I normally get about 11 to 15 million views a month on YouTube. Why can't that be 50 million a month?
Right.
Like, there's enough people, there's enough golfers in the world that want to get better, that want to learn, that want to watch fun, entertaining golf videos, that want to check out the latest equipment, or pick up a quick tip here, there, or there, or watch me play golf with Tommy Fleetwood or Bryson DeChambeau or Tiger Woods or whatever. So I think there's lots of huge opportunities still, and I still love it more than I did on day one. I still love it because it's something that I get to call a job every day. Like, this is a job. Yeah, it doesn't feel like a job. Right, I'm sure you guys are probably the same. Like, doesn't feel like a job. It feels like I get to put even though I'm not a golf professional, i.e. playing on tour, right, every day I get to put my golf shoes on. I get to hit golf clubs. I get to go out on a beautiful golf courses. I get to film it. And I think something that I think I'm only going to appreciate in another 10, 20 years, I've got all this evidence of this.
Yeah.
Like, I've got hours and hours and hours of footage of me doing all these things. Yeah. Like, I can't wait till when I'm older and I can sit down and retired and smoking a big fat cigar somewhere, St. Andrews, being able to sit there and watch all these amazing old videos that I've done, or, you know, oh God, I remember that, or cringe at other videos that I don't like anymore, or show the grandchildren these videos, or whatever it may be, or obviously show my own kids.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was going to go there, the kids, because you have kids, and just thinking like you can show them visibly. I mean, our experience has been similar. We feel incredibly honored and fortunate. I think we say it every single time when we step onto a golf course to film. We're like, I can't believe that, you know, this is what we get to do. It's just incredible. And then having that documented, like the first and only time we played the old course, we've got that filmed. And even if no one else had ever watched it, we've got it for ourselves to look back on. So I think that's a huge part. Yeah.
The only downside of that is it also captures your bad shots.
Oh yeah.
Which
it does, but we managed to laugh those off pretty well.
Yeah.
We've resigned ourselves to that. That's for sure.
People expect them at this point.
All right. Before we do this Bank It or Shank It segment, I got one more question. This is the question that when we said we were having you on the podcast and mentioned it in some of our community, it kept coming up because a lot of our viewership and listenership is here in the States, and they're all wondering, when are you going to be back over here in the States, maybe doing some content?
Yeah, well, great question. What's crazy is, honestly, about 4 or 5 years ago, I felt like I was there every other month. Like, I was there so often. If it wasn't the Orlando Golf Show, if it wasn't going over to Vegas and doing some content, if it wasn't for the Golf Channel stuff that I did, I was over there so often. But then, obviously, I've got kids, I've got a young family. You know, my wife even texts me now saying, "Are you picking up the girls from gymnastics tonight?" And I don't want to miss out on that. Like, I love that. I love taking my kids to school when I can, which is most mornings because I'm fairly flexible, obviously, with my own time. I get to see them at the weekends. I've got to see them grow. Like, my eldest daughter's 7, my middle daughter's 5, and my little boy's 3, and I've got to see him grow, and I'm really thankful for that. And I think that was more of a decision of, I could have traveled. Obviously, the pandemic would have affected that, but I could have traveled a lot more than I have done. Like, Manchester isn't the best place in the world to make golf content, believe it or not. But I've taken the conscious decision to go, I can still make golf content here and people still watch it. And as much as it's a bit colder than it would be in LA and on a beautiful golf course, I'd rather be at home and I can see my kids, and I can put them to bed and I can take them to school. So that's kind of why I've not traveled as much, just because that's something I've really been aware of. But give you a little exclusive.
Sure.
I think there are at least 3, if not 4 times I'll be coming over to the States this year.
Nice.
People will be excited to hear that. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
This year.
That's
great.
That's terrific. Hey, and listen, I think what you said there is so important. It's another reason why YouTube is such an amazing thing, because in the past, before YouTube existed, if you were creating content, television, you were very tied to certain places. But here now we can have something like arguably one of the biggest YouTubers in the world, Mr. Beast, he's settled down in a very rural area of North Carolina, and he's able to be where he wants to be and create the content he wants to create. And as you said, you can be where you want to be and still create it. And clearly it's working because, as we talked about, the channel's been exploding. But before we go, like I said, I gotta do a little rapid fire segment we do here on the show. We call it Bank It or Shank It. So basically, we're gonna fire something off on you. You tell us whether you bank it, obviously that's good, or shank it, no good. All right. So first one, it's on, been the big news, the hotly debated 46-inch maximum driver length rule. Bank it or shank it?
Shank it.
There it is. How about penalizing golfers for slow play?
Mm.
Stumped them a bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna. The only thing I feel like with slow play is sometimes the group gets penalised, not the individual golfer. Mm-hmm. So if it's the individual golfer, bank it. Mm-hmm. If it's the group, then that's harder. But for me, if you can figure out who the hell it is in the group that's being slow, absolutely penalise them.
There you go. Go after him. All right, we mentioned him before. Tiger Woods. Does he win again on the PGA Tour? Bank it or shank it?
Bank.
There it is.
Bank.
To the bank.
We always say it. Never bet against Tiger Woods.
Never.
Yeah,
Victor Hovland, world number 1 this year?
Bank.
He's certainly hot.
Agreed.
He's playing hot right now. That's for sure.
Me too. I think so too.
we might be hearing from him very soon.
Ah, wink, wink. Okay.
You can ask him directly. All right. Bank it or shank it? Brooks Koepka's new look, the haircut.
Oh, shank. I'm not. Yeah.
That one's certainly been polarizing.
Yeah. All right, we got 2 more, Rick. Rory wins the Masters eventually.
Oh, bank. Eventually, bank. Yeah.
Eventually. There we go. I had to throw that eventually in there.
I'd love to see him get that green jacket eventually. All right. Last one.
I'm even gonna say this year, bank.
There you go. The 2022 bank. Love it.
Okay. Last one. Rick Shiels, diamond play button, 10 million subscribers. Is it going to happen? Bank it or shank it?
Bank every day.
Every day. There it is.
If you learn anything from me, I back myself.
Yeah,
and if there's any YouTubers catching me, it'll only get me there quicker. So like if good get close, we're gonna get there quicker. That's all good.
That's awesome. All right, Rick, we're gonna leave it there. Dude, thanks so much for coming on the show. We appreciate you taking the time out. We learned a lot about the journey that we didn't know. So we're glad you kind of opened up that vault to us. Congrats on the 2 million, man. We can't wait to see 10.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and keep up the great work. You're both killing it as well. I just need a golf studio like you guys now. I'm very jealous of that, but one day.
I'll tell you what, when you do make that trip to the States, if it comes anywhere near New Jersey, make sure this is one of your stops, all right?
Yeah. What about if kind of Rick Shiels becomes the umbrella company for Golficity?
Oh, now we're talking.
We'll take it over, and you can come under the Rick Shiels media brand.
Well, we're ready to talk.
We're ready to talk.
All right, Rick, it's been great having you. We'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks so much.
You got it.
See you soon.
All right, Mike, that's one of those things I feel like I could have talked to Rick all day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so interesting sharing and finding out about that whole journey and how passionate he's been about YouTube and just what it's done, not only for him, but for the game of golf. But what I'll keep coming back to is that he's genuinely just a terrific guy. I like what he said about his desire to collaborate with, help other YouTubers. He's very adept at understanding and talking about that line between being competitive and, he wants to be the best.
He does.
And I think the big part of the reason why
that,
he is the biggest golf YouTuber is because of that desire and that drive. But it never comes at the cost of cutting others down or you could tell he's a person who he wishes his, if you want to call it competitors, competing channels well, because in a way it motivates him and drives him to do more and do better. And I think as all viewers and subscribers of his channel, I think we all benefit from it.
We definitely do,
because his content just keeps getting better.
It does. He keeps leveling up. He stays consistent with growing it with production quality, and he's a joy to watch, and he's got 2 million subs for a reason. So.
But it's a lesson in not only in golf but also in life, and just saying, like, if you find maybe there's a different path, or if there's something like that is working for you, or a different way of approaching something, like, kind of dig in on it. Because when he did start way back, talking about that golf lessons, nobody was doing what he was doing, and he had a kind of a feel for it, and he went in and he did it, and it worked. It took a little time. As he said, it wasn't paying off right away. It took a little bit of guts to do that investment that he did in the beginning, hiring the videographer and stuff like that. But when those lessons started rolling in, and you heard these people were flying across the pond to come get a lesson from him,
right?
The gamble paid off.
It did pay off, and I'm still laughing about the early Twitter days of the hashtag if they don't answer.
Right. But what I liked so much about that story is it showed from the very beginning he was having fun doing what he's doing, because this wasn't some sort of hack or tactic to try to grow his Twitter. He was just a guy who wanted to give golf lessons, had some opportunity at the time because he wasn't that busy. He was a young guy. And immediately, right off the bat, the first thing he starts doing is giving value. People were asking questions that were going unanswered, and he felt there's an opportunity for him to step in, do what he likes to do, teach golf, and help people. And it's no wonder why he's got such a strong, passionate community around him.
No doubt.
And you start that way, and that's exactly how you build a community.
That's it,
folks. Anyway, we had a lot of fun having Rick on the show. You can get to the show notes of everything we talked about. We'll link to, if you haven't already discovered Rick's YouTube channel somehow, we of course will link to that. I'd love to see him get to that 10 million number and get that diamond play button, because I truly think he deserves it. But you can get to that in the show notes. We can go to golficity.com/episode 414, or as always in the Golficity app. Appreciate everybody following along, and we'll see everybody again next week.